let's talk Godzilla, King of the Monsters. My name's Joe, if you don't know already, and this is my channel, Not So Average Joe. So I'm going to start off with a spoiler review for this film, but continue watching for the first few minutes. I will just generally talk about my experience of the film without any spoilers, and then I'll pre-warn you again about spoilers. You can stop watching and, well, maybe go and watch it yourself and then come back afterwards. So, what did I think of Godzilla? I'm just going to start, like I said, generally speaking, I thought visually spectacular. I would give it a 10 out of 10 for the visuals alone. I saw it in IMAX 3D, so it's probably the best format to see a film like this. You know, a big action film full of CGI special effects. And it was worth it. It was really worth it. The animation for Godzilla and the other monsters was incredible. I thought visually, the colours, the coloration, the way they did the colours. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you'll know that they use colour, different colours for the different effective elements that the different monsters, the different titans, the different kaiju are born out of, whether it's a volcano, whether it's ice, whether it's water, and that really takes effect in this film, and it's really effective and really beautiful to look at. The actual battle scenes, the action is non-stop. I mean, they definitely took note from the previous film, the first one, where a lot of people complained there wasn't enough Godzilla, and I would agree with them. You know, there's a great slow build-up. I thought it worked really well with the human characters in the first Godzilla film. However, just to pretty much see Godzilla at the end for one battle, which wasn't even that massive, I would have liked to have seen more. I felt that this film, Godzilla King of the Monsters, had almost the opposite effects that the first one had. So the first one, I thought the human characters were quite relatable, and it worked quite well, especially right at the beginning, where you have the interactions between the two scientists, and the scientist played by Juliette Binoche dies at the beginning, and that sort of sets you up with the mood of how we're going to progress forward in that film. And I thought the human characters were quite well done and very well acted, especially from Bryan Cranston. I really enjoyed that. However, there was not enough of Godzilla and the monsters, really, and the action, which is why a lot of people went to see it. This film, on the other hand, had the opposite effect. So plenty of action, plenty of Godzilla, and plenty of titans to, you know, drool over, with the visuals, and the sound of the music was incredible. However, I felt the human characters were very underdeveloped and had some serious plot armor, which I thought got to the verge of being just unbelievable in a negative way. And I was a bit disappointed, really, by the human characterizations, by the dialogue, by the writing as a whole, and it just didn't seem to work that well, in my opinion. However, for the visual spectacle of it, I'd recommend anyone go to see it. It's just amazing to watch, beautiful, and the sound of the music's incredible. The lighting, the colours, I've already brought all that up. Amazing, incredible. I will single out Millie Bobby Brown, who was really good, I thought. She didn't have a lot to go with. I felt that the film started with the characters pretty much in the middle of their story. It didn't really give you too much backstory or to how certain things began and why certain characters were reacting and interacting with each other in certain ways. I'm being very vague because of the non-spoilers here. I'm going to get straight into the spoilers in a second. But Millie Bobby Brown, she was really good, and I thought that was very well acted from her. Vera Farmiga, didn't see much of her, really, acting-wise, but, you know, for what she was there for, she was good enough. But some of the other actors I wanted to see more of, like Zhang Zi. I don't know how to pronounce her name exactly. Hopefully that's correct. Zhang Zi. Anyway, she's great. I mean, she's from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and House of Flying Daggers. I love her as an actress. I'd like to have seen more of her. Ken Watanabe, I'd like to have seen more of him as well. But there was enough there, enough dialogue to keep me happy and to keep fans of the first film happy and fans of Ken Watanabe happy. We do have people coming back. We have Sally Hawkins coming back, like I said, along with Ken Watanabe. I think they're the only two characters that came back from the original, from what I remember. They're back in this anyway, and the main character, played by Carl Chandler, I'll probably say that he is the main character in this film, the sole main one. Everyone else seems to be I don't know, backing characters. Him, Vera Farmiga, and Millie Bobby Brown, they're all sort of the main, along with Godzilla, and then everyone else sort of trails off a bit with one-liners and, you know, a bit of nonsense. Charles Dance is in this as well, and he is good in the scenes he's in. Again, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to go into spoiler territory too much, so let's just get straight into spoilers. So, spoiler warning, I'll give you like a few seconds while I'm talking right now to turn off, and then you go watch the film and come back. That's basically what I do. That's basically what you should do. Okay, so I'm going to get straight into this. So I'm going to do a brief plot. So just talk about the plot for a couple of minutes, and then I'll go into what I thought of the film with spoilers. So obviously it begins just briefly, you know, 2014, directly after, you know, Godzilla has destroyed. I forgot what city they're in Godzilla, but anyway, Godzilla has created a lot of destruction, and there's a mother and a daughter. The mother played by Vera Farmiga, and then Carl Chandler, who's the father, and I think they're looking for their son. We later find out, it's just cut straight forward to several years later, and we find out Vera Farmiga and Millie Bobby Brown, who's the older version of her daughter, are completely estranged from Millie's father, and it doesn't really give much explanation for that. I don't really, you know, I presume it's to do with the son dying, and I'm guessing that's what it was at the beginning with them looking for their son. But it goes straight from a family to me thinking of questions such as, why are they not together anymore? Why is there this interaction between them? Why does Vera Farmiga's character hate her ex-husband, or doesn't want her daughter to see him? It's just, there's too many questions unanswered there, and I thought they could have done with an extra 2 minutes of just a bit of character development, a bit of dialogue between them. And I mean, the film's 2 hours long. That extra 2 minutes could really have helped. Anyway, and Vera Farmiga's character, I'm just going to say their names because I'm rubbish at remembering characters' names. Vera Farmiga's character, she's created along with Monarch. Monarch is like the big sort of environmental group that's finding all of these titans, all of these kaiju, such as Godzilla, etc., and King Ghidorah, and they're testing them, they're checking on them, they're checking for signs of life, maybe, you know, trying to reawaken them, trying to control them, trying to work out why the things in 2014 happens, and, you know, trying to work out how to stop it from happening again. Anyway, her character, she's come up with this way of communicating with the kaiju and also reawakening them, and it's really interesting. It follows effectively the sounds of like whales, you know, the way we can communicate with whales and dolphins with sonar. The actual system itself is called Orca, which makes a lot of sense there. And she brings her daughter along with her when she hears that Mothra is about to be born, and Mothra is born as like a grub, and then eventually cocoons into this big sort of big winged moth-like creature later on in the film. Really beautiful, and she successfully communicates with it in a positive way after a few failed attempts of making it angry. And suddenly we have Charles Dance's character, we find out midway through the film that he's some sort of environmental activist. Effectively, he's Thanos, and he realizes that the world is overpopulated, and he wants to bring back these kaiju one by one just to destroy some of the populations of the world. I mean, they're all over the world, so, you know, bring out the one in India to kill some of the population in India, and one of the ones in America to kill some of the population in America, and just to reduce the worldwide population, to re-heal the world, because at the end of the day, humans are destroying the planet and the kaiju are there to keep the balance. But we don't really find out much about him. I mean, we get midway through the film, and his last words are, what's his last words? Yeah, his last words are, "Don't worry, I've got everything I need," in relation to, you know, I don't care about your system anymore. I have everything I need to do what I need to do. And then we don't see or hear from him again, which is really weird. He just disappeared off the face of the earth. I presume it's a cliffhanger that shows that he's going to reappear in the next Kong versus Godzilla film, King Kong versus Godzilla film. but it was a weird place to leave him. Anyway, I've said I was going to start talking about the plot, and I've completely gone off track a bit. So the general plot is mother and daughter, they reawaken Mothra, and then suddenly they get kidnapped. They get kidnapped by Charles Dance's environmental activist character, extreme environmental activist character. I mean, he kills all the other scientists. And Carl Chandler, their father, Millie Bobby Brown's father, finds out about it, and he goes on a quest to find them, but also to stop him because he's reawakening the different kaiju. They start tracking Carl Chandler's character, along with all the other scientists, start tracking Godzilla under the water. They realise that he could be tracked. They sort of make friends with Godzilla, stop him from attacking them by communicating with him. Then they find out that his family and Charles Dance have gone to Antarctica and to reawaken King Ghidorah. They obviously don't know that King Ghidorah is evil, that he isn't really a kaiju, but sort of an alien life form, effectively like a virus, an invasive species that's come down to Earth to rule over and destroy Earth. But they don't realise, they think he's just another ordinary kaiju, just bring him back to life, and the plan was to bring them back one by one. And over time, Vera Farmiga's character sort of agreed and started believing in Charles Dance and his theories about saving the world, much to her daughter's dismay. Unfortunately, by bringing King Ghidorah back to life, she ended up setting a spiral of events that killed lots and lots of innocent people. And after a while, once King Ghidorah was born, King Ghidorah was defrosted, should I say. King Ghidorah he could communicate with all of the other kaiju and bring all of the others back to life without the need of a machine. And they all just started coming back to life, back from being dormant under the ground, under the ocean, various other places, and they all came back all together, all at the same time, instead of one by one, which caused a hell of a lot of chaos. We had Rodan, who came out the mountain, out the volcano, effectively known as the fire demon locally. And then you have obviously Godzilla, came out the water. You have King Rodan, who was defrosted in the King Ghidorah, who was defrosted in the ice, and we have Mothra, who came out of the ground but also out of water as well. It was really interesting. We had this new woolly mammoth style kaiju, which I think came out of the mountain with the trees on. I'm not actually sure if that was it because we only saw an eye. We had a crab-like creature. I originally thought that might have been Kumongo, which is like a spider-like kaiju, but it seems like a brand new one. It was more like a spider crab. There is like a rock crab kaiju in the Godzilla franchise. However, I think it's just a brand new one that looks like a spider crab. And there are various others. We saw, the ones come back from the first film with the sort of long legs, the weird looking ones, like they're on stilts. They came back, and we didn't really get a good view of all the other kaiju that might be there, other than King Kong. We saw the back of King Kong, and they mentioned Skull Island, and in cave paintings you saw bits of him every now and then. So they're really trying to plug the next film. I can tell you that right now. And they just go on a wild goose chase, basically trying to destroy King Ghidorah, and just going back and forth throughout the madness, the craziness. They started in Antarctica, then they went back to this. Well, they went to this village. I think I'm trying to remember where it is now. Is it in South America or is it in Spain, Italy? I'm not sure. I think it's in South America, where Rodan was born out of the fire and was destroying the village. It killed quite a lot of the villagers as well. I mean, it looked more like a city than a village, but anyway. And those scenes were incredible, with Rodan coming out and flying and taking out all of the fighter planes. When one ejected from her ejector seat and swallowed her straight up, that looked gorgeous. And when Rodan was flying into the storm that was King Ghidorah, that was also incredible. Ghidorah's design was absolutely amazing. And effectively it came in as like a storm from the sky. There's a lot of mentions of legends, and sort of, you saw it in the cave paintings and the writings up, and dragons in China, and ancient civilizations, and how they treated these creatures like gods, and hell creatures, etc. They didn't delve enough into it which is a bit of a shame. I think they should have focused maybe on a couple of them and not gone just too much into so many different legends that you don't sort of remember any of them. But anyway, you have so many beautiful visuals in this, whether it's, I mean, I'll tell you my favourites right now. King Ghidorah, when he was flying up in the sky, holding Godzilla and bringing him up through the clouds and then dropping him. That was just beautifully shot. It reminded me of the first film with the parachuting down through the clouds. Just incredible. I mean, visually stunning. The special effects in IMAX really was incredible. The bit with Ghidorah with the electric coming out of his wings are great. It's sort of a nod to when we first saw Godzilla with the blue flame coming out of his mouth, blue radiation, whatever it is, in the first film. When we first see Godzilla swimming towards the underground facility below the oil rig, and you see him through the glass with the blue ridges on his back to his tail, that looked incredible. The shots when they're in the rain and with the storms with King Ghidorah, and the way that Godzilla bit one of King Ghidorah's heads off, and it grew back almost like stop motion animation mixed with CGI, and that just looked incredible. It worked so well, and the darkness and the gloominess and the quick camera pacing and angles that really gave you a sense of chaos and like all the madness that's happening around you. That was incredible. It looked really good. At times it's a bit too much, but then again in real life it would be too much if you were in that situation as a human being. A lot of the camera angles were shot like you were watching it from the ground like a human being as well, which again adds to the terrifyingness of it. I love the fact that they really did a number on Godzilla. They really showed how powerful and how deadly King Ghidorah can be. The fact he can grow back limbs, grow back heads. He can actually defeat Godzilla, almost completely defeat Godzilla, who had to at some point recharge himself because he almost died when they dropped like an oxygen reducing nuke on him to try and destroy him and King Ghidorah at the same time. King Ghidorah didn't die from that, but Godzilla effectively didn't die, but sort of went into hiding to regenerate. It was a shame when Ken Watanabe's character ended up having to sacrifice himself to bring Godzilla back, but it needed to happen at the end of the day. It had to happen. Someone had to sacrifice themselves, and it made sense, probably more than anyone else, for him to do it. Seeing that ancient civilization under the water was absolutely amazing. It looked incredible, and I'm really excited that that the director Michael Dougherty, he really wants to do a prequel that follows the ancient people and the origins of these creatures, and how they came to be known as gods and legends. And to me, that's exactly what I want to see. That's like the ultimate. That would be the ultimate Godzilla film, the ultimate kaiju film. I'd like to know their origins, and I'm really excited by that. As much as I was excited by Prometheus and the origins of Alien, it's the same thing. I really hope that does go ahead. I'll be more interested in seeing that than Godzilla versus King Kong, but I'm going to see that anyway. So there's a lot of mention of Monarch in this film. Monarch is the organization. Try and think of the exact definition of Monarch, but anyway, I don't know. Monarch is like an organization that looks after the environment, but also it's almost like a military. It's a military and environmental organization, but also it does a lot of experiments, and it's very scientific. I don't know a lot about it really, but they mentioned it enough times in this. I think the whole Godzilla series is going to be based around Monarch. So look out for that in the next film. There's going to be a lot of it. So get back to the plot. So you've got what's her name? That character. Let me look at my computer. What is her name? Okay, yes. So Sally Hawkins returns, and she's Vivian Graham, Dr. Vivian Graham, and she returns with Ken Watanabe. She's like his sort of scientific assistant. It's actually quite a shock when she dies. So in the first battle between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, she's running towards the the playing with everyone else, and literally she just gets trodden on. I think it was by Godzilla, but it might have been by King Ghidorah. I'm not actually sure. Either way, he just stamps on her and she's dead. You know, and that was one way for her character to go, considering we had her in the previous film and we were watching her, we knew her, and then she's just gone straight just like that. Again, it worked. I think it worked quite well because you just weren't expecting it. But also, by this point, she was a relatively minor character in the context of all the other characters in this film. I was disappointed by the characters. I think the main issue was there were too many characters. So too many characters means all of them are going to get very little personalized characterization, very little development as characters, and less dialogue as well. There was humour in it that I don't think worked entirely. There was too much humour during situations that really weren't funny at all. All these civilians are dying and you're cracking out a joke that's just clearly to try and make the audience laugh. But I was in the audience, and apart from a couple of funny bits, I didn't really hear any laughing. Pretty much no laughing from barely any of the jokes. However, certain scenes like the jet pilot that was fired into the mouth of Rodan, that got quite a few laughs, even though it technically wasn't meant to be funny, I don't think, but people find it funny anyway. I did also. So we only really had two major deaths, and as a result of that, only two big deaths, which were the two people from the previous film, and every single other character has such severe plot armor. You had Millie Bobby Brown getting hit by a boulder and not even flinching, having a house fall on her, and her not even have a single bruise or cut on her body at all, and stopping breathing even though she wasn't drowning. That seemed a bit weird at first. It's like, I don't know why she stopped breathing if she has no injuries. That's what it looked like. Carl Chandler's character missing being killed by an inch every 5 seconds. You have Vera Farmiga's character, who was attacked by Mothra on multiple occasions at the beginning, and she managed to avoid everything that Mothra was throwing at her. However, all the other scientists that are in the grasp of Mothra were all wiped out instantly. Mothra at that point could have just killed her instantly, but he decided to just wait there until she finally got her machine working because plot armor. Yeah, it was too much, I think. I mean, more characters should have died, in my opinion. There was no reason for all of them to be able to survive that. Obviously, all the minor characters, they're a bit more expendable. When I say minor characters, I mean the people that are one line, like the fighter pilots, the soldiers, all of them. They're all going to die, but none of the main people for no reason whatsoever. Even though the soldiers are more trained in action type situations than a scientist or a little girl or anything like that. Anyway, also, wait, I think at one point King Ghidorah stood on Millie Bobby Brown, and she, for some reason, it didn't hit her. No, I'm lying. It trod on that machine, and they found that machine when it was barely damaged, even though it had a giant like that tread on it. So I don't even know how that is even possible. And they managed to fix it in time to send out the signal again. It seems unlikely, but that's not really a big issue. So yeah, the human development, the characterizations were disappointing. Charles Dance's character just fizzling out halfway through the film, or sort of 2/3 of the way through the film, really stood out and really made no sense. It was like he left on a cliffhanger that made no sense at all. It also felt a little bit rushed. They managed to leave from one place and get to Antarctica obviously in terms of the film in the space of 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. They left that so much in between. Again, that could have been a little bit of character development, even if it's just for 1 minute. Anything, during the journeys to these places would have made it a little bit better. I really couldn't relate to too many of the characters, and like I said, I found it disappointing. But when it got to the action scenes, when it got to the fighting, it was absolutely incredible. I loved the representation of Mothra. Mothra is the smallest of the kaiju, and she's known as the Queen of the Monsters as well. They brought that up in the film. And obviously she fires like webbing and traps King Ghidorah. She had a fight with King Ghidorah at one point, also with Rodan, who burned parts of her wings off. She sacrificed herself for Godzilla because at the end of the day, she knew that Godzilla is the only one really that could defeat King Ghidorah, and King Ghidorah was about to kill Godzilla. So she sacrificed herself, and parts of her, what was left of her, is like pixie dust, landed on Godzilla, and I think that had an effect on being able to give him a little bit more radiation to get back up on his feet again. Along with Rodan, he seemed to absorb a lot of Rodan's flames and sort of fiery nature to him. And the radiation caused by Ken Watanabe sacrificing himself with a nuclear bomb to regenerate and to reawaken Godzilla, it caused him to effectively become a nuclear weapon and to just blow up on King Ghidorah and ending King Ghidorah and completely melting him down in the end, and stopping him from being able to regenerate his heads. But I love the fighting in Boston where King Ghidorah was being bitten, but not King Ghidorah. Godzilla is being bitten by King Ghidorah, almost like crocodile clips. One on the neck, one on the body, one on the leg, one on the face. It worked really well. I liked it. The animation was incredible. The darkness and the swirling darkness and the lighting was just beautiful. And let's just talk about the colours again, because I think the colours had a really massive effect. I saw that it was going to be like that in the trailer, but not to this extent. So King Ghidorah shoots out sort of yellow electric rays from its wings tips and from its, so basically from the fingers and its wingtips and from each one of his heads, each one of the mouths, and it fires like yellow electrics, and the yellows along with the dark clouds and the sort of grim blue atmosphere below on the ground, created like a beautiful mix of colours, the bright yellow with the blues and the blacks, and it works really well. But then you have Rodan is born out the flames, who's like red, and then you mix the red in with the yellow and then the blue, and it all pops out on the screen. And the depth it added, the depth of field it added when it came to IMAX was incredible. And then obviously you have Godzilla's lightning blue colour, and Mothra's lightning blue also. So Mothra had a bit more sort of white and bright, sort of bright white light, as well as blue, and you had blue with Godzilla, you had red with Rodan, King Ghidorah's yellow, and it really, all these colours together really made a difference and really made you say wow when you're watching the film. I try to work out what exactly to expect from the next film. Obviously, it's going to be Godzilla against King Kong. I presume Godzilla's going to go to Skull Island, because at the end of the day, King Kong's not swimming over the ocean, I expect. And Godzilla, we know, lives in the ocean, so he can go to visit him, pay him a little visit. I don't know. But then again, would it be that exciting if there's no human tragedy there? It's just going to be Godzilla with King Kong on an effectively empty island. At the end of the day, I think that wouldn't make a difference, because that's what it felt like in this film as well. In this film, you had an entire village being evacuated. That's the only time you actually saw civilian deaths or like realistic carnage, was when Rodan was flying over the village or the town, and you saw some people like being blown away from that. When it came to Boston, so this is what gets me. So they couldn't evacuate that smaller village when Rodan came out of the volcano, but they had more time to evacuate the whole of Boston, and they managed to evacuate I don't know. They managed to evacuate everyone. Let's start up again. What I don't understand. So what? So what I don't really understand from that is they didn't manage to evacuate a village, the village from which Rodan was effectively destroying. He flew over. The only human carnage we really saw was with the people getting blown away in that village. But when it came to Boston, they managed to evacuate an entire huge city with what looked like not much warning, and you literally, in that whole battle, you didn't see one human being other than the main characters. That seems a bit unrealistic, and it was unrealistic. It made no sense to me. You would see more people that didn't leave the city. There'll be a lot more carnage than that. It really took away the the effect that it's carnage, that it's a tragedy, that he's really destroying the planet, and that people, I mean, the whole aim of this was to reduce the population, was to kill a few people, but there seems to be no people in the whole of this film at all to, you know, they managed to all get evacuated from with 1 or 2 helicopters. It makes no sense to me at all. There should have been a lot more there, and it would have actually made you feel more like your heart was in your throat, like your heart was beating in your chest, because there'd be a lot more at stake. And I really didn't feel that there was a lot at stake from that. It was only really, you know, salvaged really from Godzilla and King Ghidorah's fight there, because the thought that King Ghidorah could win and the other kaiju would bow down to it and then they'd all go about destroying the world is the only reason why you felt that King Ghidorah needed to die, and that, oh, well, anyway, whatever. Going on too much. It was mentioned by Kyle Chandler. It has been mentioned by Kyle Chandler that, you know, the themes, the film's themes, along with the director, the film's themes are about healing the planet and about, you know, protecting the environment and the Earth's balance. But we didn't see enough of it, and there wasn't enough discussion about that. It was briefly thrown in the middle of the film when we find out who Charles Dance's character is, and it is briefly mentioned by Ken Watanabe's character, who has probably the best dialogue in the film, but it really didn't go into too much detail, and it really should have gone into that much detail because we needed better dialogue and better interactions there. I I really did not like Bradley Whitford's character, Dr. Stanton, Dr. Brick Stanton. It just, I think actually it was his humour. Without him or any of his humour, it would have improved the film quite a bit. He's a good actor, and the character himself, I'm sure, would be fine if it wasn't for the humour. It just broke every scene up. You know, it might be serious, tense scene, and then suddenly, oh, it's just a joke again, and I really didn't like that. I would say I would probably give this film overall a 6 out of 10. I mean, it's like a 10 out of 10, a full 10 out of 10 for the visuals, and, you know, a 9 out of 10 for the sound and the music. The only reason I'm giving it a 10 out of 10 for music is because there are at times where I would have liked to be able to hear the music more. I would have liked it to be louder. But then again, I mean, it was really at the times where there's heavy action, so I can't really ask for too much. You want to hear the action as well. You want to hear the explosions and the roars and everything like that. So that's not really a criticism. In terms of character development and the characters on the human side, it's really a 5 out of 10 at the most. So probably actually in hindsight a 7 out of 10. I'll give this film a 7 out of 10. So it's definitely worth a watch, and for the visual spectacle alone, go and see this film. It is just incredible to look at. I need to watch it again to catch up on any of the other bits that I might have missed, and I want to listen to the dialogue again because maybe there are parts that I've missed, and, you know, it just didn't work for me. It really didn't work for me, and there's, you know, a lot of critics agree with me, and there's a lot of criticism there with the overall plot of the film, but the visuals are, you know, pretty much widely accepted as being fantastic, and that was the main reason I wanted to see this film, was for Godzilla and the battles that go on between him and the other characters. Rodan is very like eagle sort of. It feels like a cross between an eagle and a pterodactyl character, and I love the way it spinned and took out all of the fighter pilots as well. King Ghidorah, you know, the interactions between the heads was really nice. You know, I don't know what else to say with that, really. and Godzilla is not really on anyone's side. However, like with the symbiotic relationship, the humans were helping Godzilla, much like Mothra is helping Godzilla without getting too involved, and Rodan was helping King Ghidorah because at that time he was bowing down to King Ghidorah. I love the ending of the film where Godzilla gets up and Rodan just like almost curtsied basically and bowed down to him. So Godzilla was now the king of the monsters and he was God, much like he was portrayed in ancient times where people treated him as a god and saw him as a god until King Ghidorah came down and invaded, and Godzilla had to save the people and save himself and the rest of the planet as well. Mothra has at many times though been a villain, as in being against Godzilla, so it'd be interesting to see if that will occur during Godzilla versus King Kong, or whether Mothra's literally been completely destroyed, because we don't know if that's the case, or whether Mothra is just going to end up in some form of hibernation, dormant sleep, and then to recharge like Godzilla is pretty much. But it looked to me that Mothra got completely evaporated, so I really don't think that's the case. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Just to look at, it's just stunning, absolutely stunning. Yeah. So overall, beautifully stunning visual effects. I cannot fault it on that matter. With a gorgeous score and sound effects that are really effective and popping in your ears. Unfortunately, a sort of not quite a laughable script, but if anything, the opposite. Did not make me laugh at all, even though they were trying to throw all those comedic factors in there. It's beautiful to look at. It's quite boring in terms of the plot and full of loads of cliches as well. It is quite cliched with a lot of what it's trying to do. For me, the story is equally as important as the way it looks and the way it sounds. So, I've always said that for me, the most important parts of a film are the cinematography, the music, and the writing. There are probably the three most important parts. Acting a film doesn't need to have good acting in it, in my opinion, as long as it's an awesome film and it's enjoyable and good to watch. Only in dramas should the acting be quite, on point. But pretty much for any other category, whether it's action, whether it's horror, thriller, fantasy, the acting doesn't need to be too good. You just need a good story full of non-cliches, maybe a couple of shockers here and there, and to really keep you engaged. If the story can keep you engaged, the visuals will also keep you engaged, and then you'll be engaged throughout the entire film. And you'll just be leaving the cinema saying, wow, I need to see that again, I need to see the next one. This doesn't make me necessarily want to see the next one, but I will see it because I know that the visuals will be even better probably in King Kong versus Godzilla. And it'll be interesting to see how they've improved on King Kong since Kong Skull Island as well, and whether he can evolve effectively due to being injured through radiation, etc. So yeah, it's interesting to see. I'd like to see Mothra return. I hope that's the case. I honestly would not care about seeing any of these characters return. I'd like it to be completely new, except for Charles Dance, only because of that cliffhanger. If he doesn't return for this next one, it makes absolutely no sense. It defeats the purpose of why he was even in the previous film. And Millie Bobby Brown possibly could return, but again, as an adult maybe. I don't really understand how else she can come back as a character unless she's with her family. I don't know, but as an adult it'd have to be played by a different actor. And yeah, that prequel idea sounds incredible, and I really want to see that. I think all of you guys want to see it. I'm sure I'm correct in that reasoning there. Anyway, thank you for watching my review. I know I blabber on a bit, but I just, I'm going all from memory here. I'm trying to remember exactly, characters' names, exactly what happened. And I sort of gave up. I know I gave up in a bit about the plot when I was talking about the plot. I sort of just went into my review, which I think is fine at the end of the day. I'm not going to go for the entire plot with you because it might take all day. And especially if I found the plot and the writing relatively boring, I'm going to bore you with talking about the plot and the writing, so it's pointless. Anyway, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and join my Instagram account where I do more film reviews. And I will catch you next time on my next video. See you soon.